She's more comfortable at the back, Darcy said, loud enough for the entire dining room to hear, gesturing to the table next to the coat closet like I was someone's awkward plus one. Then she turned to laugh with her wine glass still raised. Just as the waiter stepped forward and called out, "Table for the owner," every fork stopped midair, every head turned, and I didn't even blink. See, what my sister didn't know, what no one knew, is that I bought the restaurant 2 months ago. In cash. Through one of my companies. And tonight, I wasn't sitting in the back. I was reclaiming every seat she ever took from me. But before we begin, let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. My name is Claire Whitmore, and I'm 36 years old. I spend my days managing real estate investments across 3 states while my boutique firm practically runs itself. My older sister, Darcy Whitmore Keller, still lives in our hometown, planning lavish events and collecting social credit like it's currency. Mom, bless her heart, calls every Sunday to update me on Darcy's latest triumph, while Dad, before he passed last year, always said I was his steady one. My fingers traced his old watch in my pocket, the one Darcy wanted but never got. I'd learned early to watch and wait, to build my success brick by quiet brick. Now I owned half the commercial properties in our old neighborhood, including one very special restaurant. But let me start from the beginning. I pulled up to La Maison Belle 15 minutes early, smoothing my navy silk blazer as I stepped out of my rental car. You know that moment when you're about to walk into a room full of people who think they know exactly who you are? Yeah, that feeling never gets old. The restaurant's facade gleamed with understated elegance, all clean lines and warm lighting that made the brass fixtures glow like honey. I'd bought it 2 months ago through one of my holding companies, keeping my name off all the local paperwork. Not out of shame, mind you. Just strategy. The maitre d' smiled politely as I pushed through the heavy glass doors. "Good evening, ma'am. Name for the reservation?" "It's the Whitmore party," I said, watching his eyes scan the list. "I'm Claire, the younger daughter. Remember how I mentioned that thing about people always remembering Darcy's name instead of mine?" Right on cue, his face brightened with recognition. "Ah, yes, Ms. Darcy's sister. She's been here since 6, making sure everything's perfect for your mother's celebration." Of course she had. The dining room buzzed with the kind of sophisticated energy Darcy lived for. Crystal stemware caught the light from artfully dimmed chandeliers, and the subtle scent of fresh flowers mixed with truffle oil and aged wine. Mom's friends from the country club were already gathered in clusters, their jewelry catching the light as they laughed at whatever story Darcy was telling. She spotted me immediately, hard to miss in that red designer dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly mortgage. "Claire!" Her voice carried across the room with practiced projection. "Oh my goodness, I didn't think you'd actually make it." My cheeks warmed as heads turned. You'd think after 20 years that particular tone of hers wouldn't still get under my skin, but some things just stick with you, don't they? "Wouldn't miss Mom's 70th, I said, accepting her air kiss. Her perfume was expensive and overwhelming, just like always. "We've got you set up right over there." She gestured toward the back of the restaurant near the coat check. "We thought you'd be more comfortable away from all the—" She waved her hand vaguely at the center tables where all the important guests were seated. "You know how overwhelming these things can get for you." The familiar heat of childhood humiliation crept up my neck. I caught Mom's friends exchanging those looks, the ones that said they remembered exactly who I was. The quiet one, the afterthought, the sister who moved away because she couldn't handle the pressure of keeping up. I adjusted Dad's watch on my wrist and started toward my assigned exile, feeling the weight of pitying glances on my back. The table was cramped, wedged between a service station and the coat room door. A single place setting waited there, like a timeout chair for a misbehaving child. Just as I was about to sit down, movement in the center of the room caught my eye. One of the waiters, tall, professionally polished in his crisp black uniform, was scanning the dining room with purpose. His gaze landed on me, and he started walking over with the kind of confidence that makes everyone stop and watch. He reached the middle of the floor and spoke in a clear, carrying voice that cut through every conversation. "Table for the owner?" The silence that followed was absolute. I could actually hear the ice settling in someone's water glass. Darcy's perfectly arranged smile froze, then cracked just slightly at the edges. Mom's hand flew to her pearls, a nervous tell she'd had since we were kids. I stayed exactly where I was, one hand still resting on the back of my sad little banishment chair, and met the waiter's expectant look with a calm I'd spent years perfecting. The kind of calm that comes from knowing exactly what card you're holding and exactly when to play it. The gasps started soft, then rippled through the room like wind through summer leaves. All those faces that had dismissed me moments ago now stared with dawning recognition. But I wasn't looking at them. I was watching my sister's reflection in the decorative mirror behind her, cataloging every micro-expression as her carefully constructed narrative began to unravel. Time stretched like pulled taffy as every head in the room swiveled between me and the waiter. You know that feeling when you're watching dominoes fall in slow motion? That's exactly what it was like, watching the realization spread across faces one by one. Darcy's laugh died in her throat, the sound hanging awkwardly in the air. Her perfectly painted smile twitched at the corners, a tell she'd had since we were kids playing poker with Dad's pennies. She always did hate losing control of a room. I let the silence stretch just a heartbeat longer, savoring the weight of it. Then I gave the waiter a small nod. Yes, that would be me. Right this way, Ms. Whitmore. His voice carried the perfect mix of respect and warmth as he gestured toward the best table in the house, the one with the view of both the garden terrace and the entire dining room. The same table Darcy had carefully arranged for herself and her closest friends. The click of my heels against the hardwood floor was the only sound as I crossed the room. Behind me, I heard the first whispers start, the rustle of expensive fabric as people leaned toward each other, the soft clink of wedding rings against wine glasses as hands rose to cover shocked murmurs. Did you know? But I thought Darcy said, when did she? I settled into my new seat, smoothing my dress with practiced calm. The muscle memory from countless business deals kicked in, back straight, shoulders relaxed, expression pleasant, but unreadable. Dad's watch caught the light as I reached for my water glass. The familiar weight of it grounded me, like his hand on my shoulder saying, well played, kiddo. Isn't that funny? Darcy's voice cut through the whispers, pitched too high and too loud. My little sister full of surprises. She let out another forced laugh that didn't reach her eyes. Why didn't you tell me you were eating here tonight? I took a deliberate sip of water, letting her question hang unanswered. We both knew that wasn't what she meant to ask. The waiter appeared at my elbow with a fresh menu and a knowing smile. The chef would like to know if you'd prefer the tasting menu this evening, Ms. Whitmore? That would be lovely, thank you. I turned to address the table. In fact, let's do the tasting menu for everyone. Mom's 70th deserves something special, don't you think? Mom's face lit up with genuine delight, the kind I hadn't seen directed at me in years. Oh, Claire. That's so thoughtful of you, sweetheart. From the corner of my eye, I caught Darcy's fingers whitening around her wine stem. She'd spent weeks planning this dinner, positioning herself as the perfect daughter orchestrating the perfect celebration. Now her carefully constructed spotlight was shifting, and she couldn't stop it without looking petty. The evening unfolded like a slow-motion game of chess. With each course, the dynamic in the room subtly shifted. Mom's friends, who'd barely acknowledged me earlier, now directed their questions my way. The restaurant's sommelier appeared to personally discuss wine pairings with me. Even the chef emerged briefly to ensure everything was to my satisfaction. By dessert, I finally allowed myself to truly take in the view. The garden lights had come on, casting a warm glow through the windows. The room hummed with conversation and laughter. Mom was practically glowing as she shared childhood stories about both her daughters, not just Darcy, with her friends. And Darcy, well, Darcy sat with perfect posture and a brittle smile, watching her carefully curated evening slip through her fingers. As the last of the chocolate soufflés were cleared away, guests began gathering their things. I felt Darcy's hand close around my arm as I reached for my clutch. A word? She steered me toward a quiet corner, her nails pressing just slightly too hard into my skin. Why didn't you tell me? I met her gaze steadily, noting the slight smudge in her otherwise impeccable eyeliner, evidence of at least one frustrated bathroom touch-up during dinner. For a moment, I saw us as we used to be, two little girls in matching Easter dresses before competition and jealousy drew their lines in the sand. I just smiled. The morning sun painted long shadows across my hotel room as I scrolled through spa options on my phone. I'd already made the reservations weeks ago, of course, but Mom didn't need to know that. When I called her room, she answered on the first ring. Good morning, sweetheart. I was just thinking about last night. What a wonderful... How do you feel about a spa day? I cut in, keeping my voice light. I found this amazing place downtown. My treat. The pause on the other end was brief but telling. "Oh, that sounds lovely. Should I call Darcy's room or—" "Just us," I said, channeling the casual tone I used in business meetings when redirecting without seeming forceful. I thought it might be nice to have some mother-daughter time. You know, like we used to. Remember those weekend shopping trips when I was 14? Just the two of us, before Darcy started insisting on coming along and turning every outing into a showcase of her latest achievements. The memory of peaceful Saturday afternoons, trying on clothes and sharing secrets over lunch felt like a lifetime ago. "That would be wonderful," Mom said, and I heard the smile in her voice. "Let me just freshen up and I'll meet you in the lobby in 20 minutes. The spa was exactly what you'd expect from a 5-star establishment, all marble floors and trickling fountains with the faint scent of lavender hanging in the air. As we settled into plush robes, Mom's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then quickly set it face down. "Darcy seemed different last night," she ventured, while the esthetician prepped our facial masks. Almost nervous. "Did something happen between you two?" I kept my eyes closed, letting the cool cream soothe my skin. "Different how?" "Well, you know how she usually takes charge of everything? But last night she kept looking to you before making decisions. Even about the wine list, and she's usually so particular about that." My phone vibrated against the side table. Darcy's name flashed across the screen. I let it ring. "I wouldn't know," I said softly. "I was just focused on making your birthday special." The morning melted into afternoon. We moved from facials to massages, then to the mineral pool where the water felt like silk against our skin. Mom told stories about her own mother, memories she'd never shared before. It felt like excavating a lost connection, layer by gentle layer. My phone buzzed again. Another call from Darcy. 5 minutes later, a text. "Everything okay?" Mom's not answering either. I set the phone aside without responding. Let her wonder for once. "Remember when we used to do this?" Mom asked as we sat in the relaxation room, cucumber water in hand. "Just the two of us? Before Darcy started planning all our family bonding activities?" The words slipped out before I could catch them. Mom's face softened. "She means well, honey. She needs to be needed sometimes." All the time, I thought, but kept it to myself. As the sun began to set, I drove Mom back to her house. The familiar streets of our old neighborhood rolled past, each turn triggering another memory. Then we passed it. The Victorian on Maple Street, 3 stories of restored grandeur, with gingerbread trim and a wraparound porch. Fresh paint gleamed in the evening light, the deep blue exactly as I'd specified. "Oh," Mom sighed, her hand pressing against the window. "It's such a shame about Darcy. She had her heart set on that house. Called me crying when the mystery buyer outbid her. I watched a porch light flicker on, triggered by the timer I'd installed last week." "Did she?" "She was devastated. Said she'd offered well above asking price, but the owner wouldn't even counter." Mom shook her head. "I don't think she's quite gotten over it." I thought about the keys in my purse, about the antique doorknobs I'd had restored, about the master bedroom with its bay windows, the same windows Darcy had pointed out in the listing photos, declaring how perfect they'd be for her morning yoga routine. "What a shame," I echoed, turning onto Mom's street. 2 days after our spa retreat, I invited Mom over for afternoon tea at my hotel suite. The familiar scent of Earl Grey filled the room as I arranged her favorite shortbread cookies on the delicate china I'd brought from home. My hands trembled slightly as I reached into my purse. You know those moments when you've planned something perfectly, but your heart still races? This was one of those. "Mom," I said, pulling out a small velvet box, "I have something for you." She set down her teacup, curiosity lighting her eyes. "Another surprise?" "Honey, you've already done so much this week." I opened the box, revealing a brass key tied with a cream-colored ribbon. The antique metal caught the afternoon light streaming through the windows. Slowly, deliberately, I slid it across the table. "It's yours," I said quietly. "The Victorian on Maple Street. I bought it last year and had it renovated. Every detail, every fixture. It's all been restored to its original glory. Plus some modern updates I think you'll love." Mom's hand flew to her mouth. The tears came instantly, welling up and spilling over before she could catch them. I reached across the table and squeezed her other hand. But Darcy," she stammered, her voice barely a whisper. She tried so hard to buy that house. The real estate agent said the owner wouldn't even consider her offer, wouldn't negotiate at all. I know. I kept my voice gentle. I was that owner. The room went still. I could almost see the pieces clicking into place behind Mom's eyes. The mysterious buyer, the renovation timeline, my careful questions about her retirement dreams over the past year. You, she blinked rapidly, looking from the key to my face and back again. All this time? I nodded, taking a sip of tea to steady myself. I wanted it to be perfect for you. The kitchen has that AGA range you've always dreamed about. The library shelves are built to fit your entire collection. And the garden? The garden! Mom's eyes widened. Is that why you asked about my favorite roses last spring? Heritage varieties, all of them. They'll bloom just in time for summer. A laugh bubbled up through her tears. My brilliant girl, my quiet, brilliant girl. She clutched the key to her chest. But why didn't you tell me sooner? The question hung in the air, heavy with unspoken understanding. We both knew why. Years of watching Darcy commandeer every family milestone, every celebration, every chance to shine. It had taught me the value of timing. I wanted it to be just right, I said simply. The house needed work, and you needed time to think about downsizing. And honestly, I smiled. It felt good to have a secret for once. Mom reached across the table and cupped my cheek, the way she used to when I was small. Her palm was warm from holding the teacup. You've always been the planner, haven't you? Even when we didn't see it. Someone had to be. I covered her hand with mine. While Darcy was planning parties, I was planning futures. The moment stretched between us, 3 decades of unspoken acknowledgments flowing into the space where competition had lived for so long. Then Mom's phone buzzed against the table. Darcy's name lit up the screen. Mom stared at it, then at the key still pressed against her heart. I saw the question in her eyes. What do we tell her? The phone kept buzzing. 1 ring, 2, 3. You should probably answer it, I said softly. She's called 4 times today already. Mom's thumb hovered over the screen. She'll want to know everything. About the house, about why her mysterious buyer suddenly reappeared. I finished for her. The phone fell silent, then immediately started ringing again. Maybe it's time she learned that some things aren't hers to control. I was helping Mom sort through paint swatches for the Victorian sitting room when Darcy's Mercedes purred into the driveway. The afternoon sun caught her oversized sunglasses as she emerged, perfectly coiffed despite the summer humidity that had my own hair curling at the temples. There you are. Her voice carried that artificial brightness I knew too well. I've been trying to reach you both all day. Mom shot me a quick glance. I squeezed her hand under the table, a silent promise that I'd handle this. Darcy swept in without waiting for an invitation, her heels clicking against the hardwood. She paused at the sight of the paint samples spread across the kitchen table, confusion flickering across her face. What's all this? She pulled off her sunglasses, revealing slightly reddened eyes. Mom straightened, clutching the house key that still hung from its cream ribbon. Claire has given me the most incredible gift, darling. Oh? Darcy's smile tightened at the corners. The Victorian on Maple Street, Mom continued, her voice warm with joy. Claire bought it last year and had it renovated. For me. The silence that followed was delicious. I watched emotions chase across my sister's face. Shock, disbelief, that familiar flash of jealousy she never could quite hide. You bought it? Darcy's voice cracked slightly. But I tried. The agent said the owner wouldn't even consider. She stopped herself, swallowing hard. It just felt right, I said simply, gathering the paint swatches into a neat stack. Darcy sank into the chair across from us, her designer purse sliding off her shoulder. And you've been renovating it? All this time? The gardens are especially beautiful, Mom added, either missing or choosing to ignore the tension. Claire remembered all my favorite roses. The gardens, Darcy repeated faintly. Then her spine straightened, social training kicking in. Well, that's wonderful. Though you'll need a professional landscaper to maintain them properly. Ryan could... Actually, I cut in, checking my watch. I have a meeting with Ryan in about an hour to discuss exactly that. This was news to both of them. Mom beamed, but Darcy's smile faltered. You... What? Ryan didn't mention... He probably forgot. I said smoothly, standing to gather my things. You know how busy he's been with the business lately. That landed exactly as intended. Darcy's lips pressed into a thin line. We all knew Ryan's landscaping company had been struggling, a fact that clearly embarrassed her. Well, I should get going, I said, kissing Mom's cheek. Lots to discuss with Ryan about the property. Darcy followed me out, catching my arm just outside the door. Claire, wait. Her fingers dug in slightly. What are you doing? I turned, meeting her gaze steadily. Having a business meeting with my brother-in-law. Is that a problem? She released me as if burned. Of course not. I wish you'd told me. About the house. About all of it. Like you told me about moving Mom's birthday dinner to the back table? Her cheeks flushed. That was different. I need to go, I said quietly. Ryan's waiting. The coffee shop was quiet when Ryan arrived, right on time. He looked different away from Darcy, more relaxed in jeans and a polo shirt, though worry lines creased his forehead. Thanks for meeting me, he said, settling into the booth. Darcy mentioned you bought that Victorian. Nice place. It is. I pulled out a folder. But I didn't ask you here about the house, Ryan. I wanted to talk about your business. His shoulders tensed. What about it? I know things have been tough lately. The economy, the drought affecting installations. I slid a document across the table. I'd like to invest, help you expand, modernize your equipment. My terms are fair. You can have your lawyer review them. Ryan stared at the papers, then at me. Why? Because you're good at what you do. And because I believe in investing in family. I paused. Even if some family members don't always return the favor. He picked up the contract, scanning the figures. His eyes widened slightly. This is generous. It's business, I corrected gently. Good business. You have the skills and reputation. I have the capital. Simple as that. Ryan nodded slowly, a new light kindling in his eyes. Darcy doesn't know about this, does she? No, I said. And she doesn't need to. Not yet. He tucked the contract into his jacket, and I saw something shift in his expression. Relief, maybe, or hope. Either way, it wasn't the look of a man planning to rush home and tell his wife about our meeting. Over the next 3 days, I watched the changes in Ryan like watching spring arrive, gradual but unmistakable. His shoulders straightened. His smile came easier. At the grocery store, I spotted him in the coffee aisle, sketching designs on the back of his receipt while waiting in line. When he saw me, he gave a quick, conspiratorial nod. That's when I noticed Darcy watching from produce, her perfectly manicured nails digging into an innocent cucumber. You know that feeling when the air pressure drops before a storm? That's what it felt like around town that week. Little things started reaching my ears. Susan from the garden club mentioned, oh so carefully, that she'd heard I was having difficulties. The barista at my favorite coffee shop asked if everything was okay at home. Even Mom called, her voice tight with concern, to say Darcy had been sharing some worries. I did what I always did, stayed quiet and listened. And boy, did people talk. Darcy says you're trying to push her out of the family business. That was from Linda at the pharmacy. Is it true you're causing problems in her marriage? Mrs. Peterson at church, of all people. We heard you're jealous of her success. The ladies at yoga whispering when they thought I couldn't hear. It was like being back in high school when Darcy told everyone I'd stolen her prom date. Only this time, I wasn't that insecure 16-year-old anymore. I had receipts. Remember that voicemail from last Christmas? The one where Darcy lost it because I couldn't make it to her holiday party? I'd kept it, though I wasn't sure why at the time. Maybe some part of me knew this day would come. That night, alone in my hotel room, I played it again. Her voice filled the darkness, sharp with whine and spite. Listen here, you little parasite. I know what you're doing, trying to worm your way back in after all these years, but this is my life, my family. Ryan agrees with me, don't you, honey? A muffled sound in the background. We're cutting you off for good. Find someone else's life to leech onto. The timestamp read December 23rd, 10:47 p.m., right after she'd heard I'd bought a property in town, though she didn't know which one yet. My thumb hovered over the forward button. One click and I could send it to Ryan. To Mom. To that chatty garden club text chain where Darcy had been so busy sharing her concerns. But timing is everything, isn't it? And despite what my sister might think, I wasn't out to destroy her. I just wanted the truth to come out. On its own terms, in its own time. My phone buzzed with a text from Ryan. Meeting with the bank tomorrow, thank you. Another buzz, Darcy this time. We need to talk about what you're doing. A third, Mom. Honey, is everything okay between you girls? I set the phone down without responding. Outside my window, I could see the lights of the restaurant I owned, still busy even at this hour. Across town, the Victorians' gardens would be silver in the moonlight, the roses Mom loved so much drinking in the evening air. All those things Darcy had wanted, had tried to claim as her territory. The voicemail sat there, a loaded gun waiting to be fired. But sometimes the threat of exposure is more powerful than exposure itself. Let her spin her stories. Let her dig her hole deeper and deeper. I'd learned long ago that the best revenge isn't served cold. It's served at exactly the right temperature, when all the ingredients have had time to properly marinate. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Darcy. I know what you're trying to do. It won't work. I smiled at the screen but didn't reply. Because here's the thing about people who are used to controlling the narrative. They can't stand silence. They fill it with noise, with accusations, with their own worst fears. And Darcy? She was just getting started. The annual Riverside Heights Charity Gala was the kind of event where reputations were made or broken. 20 years of tradition, black tie mandatory, and a guest list that read like a who's who of local society. As chair of the organizing committee, I'd spent weeks ensuring everything was perfect, from the hand-calligraphed place cards to the crystal champagne flutes that caught the light just so. You know those moments when you can feel something coming? When the air gets thick with possibility? That's how it felt as I stood near the entrance, greeting guests in my midnight blue Valentino. Simple, elegant, appropriate. Everything about me said, I belong here. Claire, darling! Mrs. Henderson air-kissed my cheeks. The decorations are divine, and I hear the silent auction items are spectacular this year. I smiled, gesturing toward the display tables. Wait until you see the Caribbean cruise package. The room filled steadily, doctors, lawyers, old money mingling with new. Everyone in regulation, black formal wear, exactly as specified on the invitations. At 8:30, well after dinner had been served, the main doors swung open. Remember how I said timing is everything? Well, Darcy had always known how to make an entrance. She stood there, backlit by the foyer chandelier, wearing a white dress that looked like it had been painted on. The kind of dress you'd wear to steal focus at someone else's wedding. The conversation dipped, then surged with whispers. Beside me, Mrs. Henderson's eyebrows nearly met her hairline. Oh my, she murmured. How interesting. I kept my expression neutral, but my mind flashed back to our mother's 40th birthday, when Darcy had shown up in a red sequined dress to what was clearly marked as a casual backyard barbecue. Some habits never change. For the next hour, I circulated through the crowd, checking on the silent auction tables, making sure the champagne kept flowing. Darcy worked the room in her own way, laughing too loud, touching arms, leaving lipstick marks on cheeks. But I noticed how people stepped back slightly when she approached, how conversations shifted to safer topics. The breaking point came during the final bidding round. I was adjusting a vase of white roses, Mom's favorites, when I felt her presence behind me. I know what you're doing, Darcy hissed, her breath warm against my ear. I turned slowly, maintaining the careful distance that proper society demands. Helping raise money for children's literacy? Yes, that's exactly what I'm doing. Don't play innocent. Her fingers were white around her champagne stem. First the restaurant, then the house, my house. Now Ryan's business? You're trying to steal my life. A few heads turned our way. I kept my voice low, steady. Darcy, this isn't the time or place. When is the time? Her voice rose sharply. When you've taken everything? When there's nothing left? More people were watching now. The string quartet faltered slightly. You need to calm down, I said quietly. You're making a scene. That was the match to the gasoline. Darcy's face flushed red beneath her perfect makeup. She took 2 steps back, arms wide, champagne sloshing dangerously. Making a scene? She shouted. You want to talk about scenes? How about how you swooped in here after 15 years away and started systematically stealing my life? The restaurant I was going to buy? The house I wanted? My husband's attention? Everything I worked for? Everything I built? You just had to have it all, didn't you? The room went absolutely silent. Even the quartet stopped playing. Every eye in the place was locked on us, the woman in white, gesturing wildly, and me in my perfectly appropriate black, standing still as stone. Mrs. Henderson moved forward slightly, concern etched on her face, but I gave her a small shake of my head. Let it play out. You were always like this, Darcy continued, her voice echoing in the silence. Quiet little Claire, helping everyone, fixing everything. But really you were just watching, waiting, planning how to take it all away from me. Well, I won't let you, I won't. Mrs. Whitmore Keller. A firm voice cut through her tirade. Richard Maxwell, head of the hospital board, stepped forward. I believe you've had enough champagne for one evening. Darcy blinked, as if suddenly realizing where she was. Who was watching? What she'd just done. The silence stretched, heavy as lead. I left the gala early, my heels clicking against marble as I walked to my car. Behind me, conversations had resumed, but with that electric undertone that follows spectacular social disasters. My phone buzzed twice, Mom checking if I was okay. I texted back a simple, all good, and drove home to the Victorian. Remember those summer thunderstorms when we were kids? The way the air would get thick and heavy right before everything broke loose? That's exactly how it felt sitting in my study that night, watching my email notifications stack up. By midnight, 3 different board members had contacted me about filing formal complaints regarding Darcy's unprofessional conduct. The silent auction donors, mostly her regular clients, were pulling out of her upcoming events. Mrs. Henderson forwarded me an email chain where people discussed reevaluating their social obligations. Translation? Darcy's event planning business was about to take a massive hit. I didn't respond to any of them. Didn't have to. The truth has a way of speaking for itself. Around 1 a.m, my doorbell rang. Ryan stood there, looking like he'd aged 10 years in 3 hours. Can we talk? His voice was rough. I need to understand what's happening. I led him to the kitchen and poured 2 cups of coffee. The smell reminded me of Sunday mornings at Mom and Dad's, before everything got complicated, when family still meant something simple and safe. Darcy's been acting strange for weeks, he said, wrapping his hands around the mug. Ever since you came back. But tonight, I've never seen her like that. She kept saying you were trying to destroy her, take everything away. He looked up. What did she mean about my business? I took a slow sip of coffee. I invested because I saw potential, that's all. But why didn't you tell her? Would she have let you accept if I had? His silence was answer enough. We sat there for a moment, kitchen clock ticking softly. There's something you should hear, I said finally, pulling out my phone. I didn't want to play this, but after tonight, I pressed play. Darcy's voice filled the room, sharp and cold. Listen to me, Ryan. My sister is nothing but a parasite. She always has been. I don't care what kind of help she's offering. You cut her off for good, or I swear. The message played on. Ryan's face went pale, then red, then settled into something hard and final. When it ended, he stood up so quickly his chair scraped against the floor. I need to go, he said. I walked him to the door. Before leaving, he turned back. Thank you for showing me the truth. My security system pinged at 2:47 a.m. Through the cameras, I watched Ryan pull up to his house, their house, and go inside. 20 minutes later, he emerged with a duffel bag. His truck idled in the driveway for a long moment before backing out and disappearing down the street. Darcy's calls started around 3 a.m. First to Ryan, 8 times in rapid succession. Then to me, 3 times, straight to voicemail. I watched the notifications stack up but didn't answer. Some conversations aren't meant to happen in the dark hours before dawn. At sunrise, I went for my usual morning walk. The neighborhood was quiet except for early joggers and dog walkers. As I passed Darcy's house, I noticed her car was still in the driveway. The curtains were drawn tight, but a single light burned in the upstairs window, her bedroom. My phone buzzed again, a group text from the charity board. They were suspending all contracts with Darcy's event planning company pending review. 3 minutes later, an email arrived from the city's Business Ethics Committee. They were opening an investigation based on donor complaints. I kept walking, letting the morning air fill my lungs. Somewhere, a cardinal started singing, the same sound that used to wake us up on summer mornings when we shared a room as kids. Back when Darcy was still my big sister, before she became something else entirely. Another text came through, this one from Mom. Heard about Ryan. Is Darcy okay? I looked back at the house with its drawn curtains and lonely car. The answer was simple, but I didn't type it out. No, Darcy wasn't okay. She was alone, and everyone knew it. 3 days passed in a blur of notifications and whispers. I'd been working remotely from Mom's kitchen, pretending to focus on spreadsheets while actually watching my phone light up with updates about Darcy's rapidly imploding world. You know that feeling when you're watching dominoes fall? How each click leads inevitably to the next. That's what this was like. Only instead of plastic tiles, these were the carefully arranged pieces of my sister's social empire. The first domino fell Monday morning. An email from the City Ethics Board, copied to every major event planning association in 3 counties, announcing a formal investigation into allegations of donor manipulation and misrepresentation of charitable funds. They didn't name names, but everyone knew. The charity gala had been Darcy's crown jewel for 5 years running. "Did you see this?" Mom asked over coffee, sliding her tablet across the counter. The local society page had a write-up about the gala. The photo showed Darcy in that white dress, face twisted mid-shout, while I stood calmly beside her in classic black. The caption was brutal. Local event planner's public meltdown raises questions about professional conduct. I remembered standing in that exact spot 30 years ago, watching Mom frost cupcakes while Darcy complained that mine always looked better. The kitchen still smelled the same, like coffee and morning sunshine. "I did," I said simply, taking another sip. By Tuesday afternoon, my inbox was flooded with forwarded messages from mutual acquaintances. Everyone seemed to be reevaluating their social obligations. Polite society speak for jumping ship. 3 charity boards had already suspended their contracts with Darcy's company. 2 others were reviewing their options. The real blow came Wednesday. My phone buzzed during a video call with my office back home. A text from Caroline Weber, head of the city's business licensing board. Well played. I didn't respond. Didn't need to. Some victories speak for themselves. That evening, I decided to take a walk, clear my head, process everything that had happened. The autumn air was crisp, carrying that particular small-town silence that settles in just before dinner time. As I rounded the corner onto Maple Street, warm light spilled from the windows of the Victorian house, Mom's house now. The sound of laughter drifted out. She was hosting her book club, something she'd wanted to do for years but never had space for in her old apartment. I paused across the street, just watching. Through the bay window, I could see her gesturing animatedly, probably explaining the plot twist none of them saw coming. She looked happy, free. Movement caught my eye, a municipal vehicle pulling away from Darcy's house 2 doors down. The contrast was stark. Where Mom's home glowed with life, Darcy sat dark and still, like a house from one of those Gothic novels Mom loved to read. An official-looking envelope lay propped against her front door, bright white against the darkened porch. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Caroline Weber. "License revocation hearing scheduled for Friday. Thought you should know." I slipped the phone back into my pocket without responding and kept walking. The street was lined with maple trees, the same ones Darcy and I used to climb as kids. Their leaves were just starting to turn, hints of gold emerging at the edges. Soon they'd transform completely, letting go of everything they'd been holding on to. A car door slammed somewhere nearby. I glanced back to see Ryan pulling into Mom's driveway. He'd been stopping by regularly since moving out, helping her arrange furniture and hang pictures in the Victorian. He caught my eye and gave a small wave before heading inside. More laughter drifted out as the door opened and closed. The official envelope still sat on Darcy's porch, waiting. In the growing dusk, it looked almost like a white flag of surrender. My phone buzzed one final time. A group message from the Charity Board Association. Due to recent events and pending investigations, all contracts with Whitmore Keller Events are hereby terminated, effective immediately. I watched a leaf break free from its branch and drift slowly to the ground. Sometimes letting go happens all at once. Sometimes it's a gradual release. Either way, the fall is inevitable. The light was fading fast now, but I could still make out that envelope on Darcy's porch. Still bright. Still waiting. Still marking the end of everything she'd built. I turned away and headed back toward Mom's house, toward the warmth and laughter. Behind me, Darcy's world continued its quiet collapse into darkness. I'd almost forgotten how beautiful the restaurant looked at twilight. The setting sun painted everything in amber and gold, streaming through the wall of windows like honey. Walking through those heavy oak doors one last time before heading home, I caught the familiar scent of fresh-baked bread and herbs, the signature welcome that had first made me fall in love with this place. Marcus, our maitre d', spotted me immediately. His face lit up with that perfect blend of professional warmth and genuine pleasure. "Ms. Whitmore, we weren't expecting you this evening." He gestured to Jennifer, our newest hostess, who hurried to take my coat. "You know that moment when you enter a room and everything shifts? Not in a dramatic way, more like ripples spreading across still water." That's what happened. Conversations dipped slightly, eyes flickered my way, then politely returned to their meals. But the energy had changed. The air felt charged, like before a summer storm. I adjusted Dad's watch on my wrist, the same one he'd worn to every important moment of his life. The leather band was worn smooth from years of wear, but the face still gleamed. Mom's vintage Hermes scarf draped perfectly against my black blazer, its deep blues and greens catching the light. 2 pieces of my history, wrapped around me like armor. "Your usual table?" Marcus asked, already knowing the answer. I nodded, following him to the center of the dining room. Table 12. The best sightlines in the house, perfectly positioned to see and be seen. Darcy used to insist on it whenever she hosted her important gatherings here. Now it was just another table. My table. "The usual, Ms. Whitmore?" Sarah appeared at my elbow, wine list in hand, though we both knew I wouldn't need it. "Please." I smiled, watching her disappear toward the bar. The stemware caught the fading sunlight, creating little prisms on the crisp white tablecloth. Dad would have loved that detail. He always said it was the small things that made a place special. From somewhere behind me, a whisper floated past. "Isn't that the woman who—" The voice trailed off, leaving the question hanging in the air like smoke. I didn't turn around. Didn't need to. Let them wonder. Let them remember. Sarah returned with my wine, a Bordeaux we'd discovered during my first week of ownership. The deep red caught the light as she poured, reminding me of Mom's old ruby ring, the one Darcy always coveted but never got to wear. The dining room hummed with quiet conversation and the gentle clink of silverware. Through the windows, I could see the town square coming alive for evening. Shop lights twinkling on, couples walking hand in hand, kids chasing each other across the grass, all those lives intertwining, all those stories unfolding. And here I sat, finally at the center of my own. My phone buzzed once, a text from Mom. Book club loved the new chairs in the library. Ryan helped me arrange them just right. I smiled, picturing her in the Victorian, surrounded by friends and stories, exactly where she belonged. The wine tasted perfect, notes of blackberry and oak rolling across my tongue. I remembered the first time I'd tried it, sitting at this very table during the purchase negotiations. The previous owner had insisted we share a bottle while discussing terms. To understand a restaurant, he'd said, you have to feel its heart. He was right. Marcus appeared again, this time with Chef Anton. They both wore those carefully neutral expressions that usually meant someone important had arrived. "Ms. Whitmore," Anton began, "we've been experimenting with a new autumn menu. Would you like to preview some dishes?" I gestured to the empty chair across from me. "Please." The sun had fully set now, and the restaurant's evening lighting created pools of warm gold throughout the room. More whispers drifted past. More glances slid my way. But unlike those childhood moments of shrinking under attention, I sat straight and calm. This was my space. My moment. Sarah approached with the first course, a delicate arrangement of local vegetables and edible flowers. It looked like an artist's palette, all subtle colors and careful composition. "Beautiful," I murmured, and her smile bloomed with pride. Through the windows, I could see my reflection overlaid against the darkening sky. Dad's watch gleamed at my wrist. Mom's scarf draped elegantly across my shoulders. And there I sat, finally exactly where I was meant to be. The evening crowd had thinned by 9, leaving behind empty wine glasses and the lingering scent of Chef Anton's new autumn menu. I settled the bill, though Marcus insisted it wasn't necessary, and stepped into the cool night air, breathing in deep. Main Street glowed with its usual evening charm. String lights zigzagged overhead between the historic buildings, creating a canopy of soft light that always reminded me of fireflies. When we were kids, Dad would take us downtown for ice cream on summer nights, and Darcy would try to catch the lights in her hands, convinced they were real stars. The thought didn't sting anymore. I walked slowly, letting my heels click against the familiar brick sidewalk. The sound echoed off the old storefronts, Harriet's Books, where I'd hidden during high school lunch breaks. Thompson's Hardware, where Dad bought all his supplies. And finally, Sweet Dreams Bakery, still open despite the hour. Warm light and laughter spilled from its windows, along with the rich scent of coffee and fresh-baked cookies. A group of women sat at one of the corner tables, heads bent together in conversation. Not long ago, that would have been Darcy's crowd, dissecting the latest town drama over lattes and scones. Now they barely mentioned her name. The silence felt strange. No angry texts lighting up my phone, no tearful voicemails, no carefully orchestrated run-ins at Mom's house. Just nothing. Like she'd finally run out of words. My phone buzzed in my purse, and for a split second, my stomach tightened. Old habits die hard. But it was Ryan's name on the screen, not hers. Just landed the Riverside project. City approved the full proposal. Couldn't have done it without your guidance. Thank you. I smiled, remembering his enthusiasm when we first discussed expanding his business. He'd had the talent all along, just needed someone to believe in him. Someone who saw past the role of Darcy's husband to the capable businessman underneath. Congrats, I typed back. Simple. Professional. The way it needed to be. Standing there under the string lights, I pulled up my saved voicemails. Darcy's message sat at the top of the list, time-stamped from months ago. I hadn't played it since that night at the gala. Hadn't needed to. Her words, parasite. Cut her off. Worthless. Had served their purpose. The bakery door chimed as customers left, their laughter floating past me. A couple walked by, hands linked, heading toward the town square. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. Life went on. I pressed delete. The message disappeared without fanfare. No dramatic music, no sudden weight lifting from my shoulders. Just a quiet click and one less toxic thing in my world. The night had grown cooler, and I pulled Mom's scarf closer around my neck. Its familiar silk brought back memories of watching her get ready for special occasions, carefully selecting just the right accessories. She'd always let me help, teaching me the art of subtle elegance. Style isn't about being seen, she'd say. It's about being remembered. Dad's watch ticked steadily at my wrist, marking each peaceful moment. He would have understood this quiet victory. He always said true strength wasn't in the fighting, but in knowing when to lay down your weapons. Looking up at those glowing string lights, I remembered something else he used to say while we sat eating our ice cream cones. The best view isn't always from the spotlight. Back then, I thought he was trying to make me feel better about living in Darcy's shadow. Now I understood. He was teaching me to see clearly from the darkness. A light breeze carried the scent of fresh cookies from the bakery, mixing with the crisp autumn air. I didn't need armor anymore. Didn't need recordings or revenge or carefully planned reveals. The truth had done its work, clean and quiet, like rainfall washing away old dust. My phone buzzed once more with another message from Ryan, a photo of the signed contract. I smiled and slipped the phone back into my purse without replying. Some moments don't need words. 1 week later, I sat in my home office scrolling through local news updates. The headline was small but definitive. Whitmore Keller Events closes amid ethics investigation. No dramatic exposé, no scandalous details, just a simple business notice tucked between restaurant reviews and council meeting minutes. Exactly how Darcy would have hated it. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Did you see? Yes, I replied. Meeting you at 1? Wouldn't miss it, she wrote back, adding a heart emoji. The morning light streamed through my windows, catching the edge of Dad's watch as I checked the time. Remember when Darcy used to steal it from his dresser? She'd parade around the house showing off how grown up she looked. But she never noticed how it kept losing minutes because she never wound it properly. Dad would just smile, take it back each evening, and carefully reset it. Some things need patient hands to work right. I gathered my things, including the folder containing confirmation of my latest property acquisition, the old theater building on Main Street. This time, my name was right there on the paperwork. No hiding, no proxies, no quiet maneuvering. The realtor had raised her eyebrows when she saw my portfolio. You've been busy, she'd said, respect evident in her tone. The drive downtown felt different now. No tension in my shoulders, no rehearsed responses ready for chance encounters. The parking spot in front of my restaurant, still strange to think those words, waited empty, as always. The host's face lit up when I walked in, genuine warmth replacing the old artificial welcome I used to receive as Darcy's sister. "Your usual table is ready, Ms. Whitmore," he said, leading the way. Mrs. Whitmore called to say she's running a few minutes behind. I settled into my seat, smoothing Mom's vintage silk scarf. The familiar pattern caught the light just so, tiny silver threads woven through deep blue silk. She'd worn it to every important moment in our lives: graduations, weddings, celebrations. Now it felt right against my skin, like an inheritance finally claimed. "Would you like your usual while you wait?" the waiter asked. "Yes, please. And one for my mother when she arrives." He nodded, understanding perfectly. Mom and I had developed quite the reputation for our long lunches here, talking and laughing over glasses of crisp white wine. The other patrons had stopped staring weeks ago, but they still noticed. You could feel it in the subtle shift of energy whenever we were there, the quiet acknowledgement that things had changed. I checked my phone again. 3 missed calls from unknown numbers. Probably Darcy, using borrowed phones since I'd blocked hers. The last time she'd gotten through, 2 days ago, she'd been eerily calm. "They're freezing my accounts," she'd said, as if discussing the weather. "The ethics board wants to make an example." Then silence, waiting for me to fix it, like always. But I'd just said, "I'm sorry to hear that," and ended the call. The social fallout had been swift and absolute. Board positions withdrawn, charity gala invitations rescinded. Her carefully curated social media accounts gone dark. Ryan had filed for divorce yesterday. Mom told me he'd moved in with his brother across town. The hostess's voice lifted in greeting, and I looked up to see Mom walking toward me, radiant in a navy dress that matched my scarf. Heads turned as she passed, but not because she was Darcy's mother anymore. She carried herself differently now, like she'd shed an old weight. "Sorry I'm late, darling," she said, kissing my cheek before sitting. "I was on the phone with the Historical Society. They're thrilled about your plans for the theater." The waiter appeared with our wines, and Mom raised her glass. "To new beginnings?" I lifted mine in return, feeling the weight of Dad's watch against my wrist, the soft brush of Mom's scarf at my throat. These weren't just accessories anymore, they were testaments. Proof that legacy isn't about who shouts the loudest, but who holds steady the longest. Looking into my mother's proud eyes, I finally said the words I'd been holding back. I wasn't quiet because I was weak. I was watching. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand, understanding everything those words meant. "I believe stories like this find us for a reason. If this one touched you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day, and tomorrow's might be the one your heart's been waiting for."